M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
Worked with great talent in the AWA when you were there, and certainly when you were down south. But I'm thinking of teams like Playboy Buddy Rose and Doug Summers.
Well, we're on that subject. We actually have a question from the chat room. The First Lady of Wrestling,
Maria.
Yeah,
Maria
she wanted to know who were some of the favorite tag team opponents of you guys.
Oh well, there's one without question, which would be the Rockers. You know, we had feud in AWA, and then of course also as Orient Express in WWF. So man, I don't know. It was just the chemistry of the four of us was unmatched, and you didn't really have to think what. I mean, it just kind of all fell into place. And you know, everybody, and even today at the event, you know, some people mention, "Oh my God, that 1991 Royal Rumble, that should be used as an instructional video." Or something. You know, but so it was just something that we did, and we kind of were a little bit ahead of our time. But you know, the four of us, man, we could once we got together.
Sure.
You know, just nothing was impossible.
So while we're on the subject of the Rockers, so back in your earlier days, back in San Antonio, I hear you had a tag team partner that would later become known as the showstopper there. And
I did, and I don't know, you know, how many people are aware. When I started, the second place I had a job was in San Antonio, Texas All-Star Wrestling, which was known as Southwest Championship Wrestling. Well, Joe Blanchard owned that and wound up selling it to a guy named Fred Barron. And Shawn Michaels at the time, he was working for Bill Watts in Louisiana, and his home is San Antonio, so they brought him back home. And you know, he was 19 years old. There are a few pictures floating around. I mean, it's amazing the difference that you see.
He was actually a kid back then.
Yes, very much so. A soft, skinny, short hair kid, right? And but they were looking to you know, put together a babyface tag team, and the way it worked out is Shawn and I became the American Force. Half of it was Croatian, Canadian, and the other half.
And before Shawn came in the picture of American Force, you had another partner.
I did. Actually,
Go ahead.
Frankie the Thumper Lancaster was one of them. And Nick Kaniski was the other.
Who was decidedly not an American himself
either. So it was a Canadian force, actually, at that time. Yes.
Well, it's nice that you were both foreign-born, yet you were faces, right?
Right.
Because, you know, they seem to make Canadians into heels a lot of the time, and usually foreign heels.
No. Yeah, right.
But,
So, but, you know, obviously, so I was there. Neither of those guys really worked out for what they were looking for. And by that time, Shawn had just returned from Louisiana. And they was going to give it a try, you know, with him and I. And actually, they, you know, gave us a good push there, and you know, it worked out pretty well. I think we'd at that point they were trying to get at least you know, a sort of somewhat of a big show. So the sheep herders are better known as the bushwhackers. They brought them in.
I got to see Luke.
Yes, and you know, we wound up working with those guys as the sheep herders in San Antonio at one of the shows.
And boy, were they hardcore! And
they were hardcore.
They were. So that must have been
as hardcore. Yes.
Yeah, they were one of the originators. Who else was doing it back then? Maybe Abdullah?
Yeah, Brody and a few others like that. Southwest seemed to be
well, they were booking at the time, and they were blood and guts.
They were.
That's what Southwest was.
It was.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So there's some crazy spots. They used to be on the USA Network for a while,
before Vince took that away from him.
So even after this time, we had a little bit of a conversation earlier, which was something that was pretty enlightening about Shawn Michaels. So even back when you were tagging with him, he didn't exactly want to be a tag team wrestler.
No, he made it perfectly clear from day one that we were a tag team, that he was going to be a singles wrestler, right? And so a few months later, his trainer, Jose Lothario,
Super
got him a
Sock,
job
yeah.
with Vince Vern Gagne in Minneapolis, and Shawn was on his way and ready to hit the big time. And what do you get, Marty?
Yeah.
For the next, which I wasn't a bad thing. Obviously, he needed that to get to the eventual point where he's at.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how you look at that tag team. I don't know about you guys. When I look at them in the beginning, I look at Marty as the more experienced. He really seemed to lead that tag team in the beginning, and then over that course of that 8 years, how much that flip-flopped.
Yeah, well, and that's true. I think, and from day one, Shawn saw the trophy. He knew what he wanted.
I was on that prize.
Marty's trophy was partying.
Yeah.
So
the woman of the night.
It still is, I think.
Yes, right.
God love him. God love him.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, so they definitely did flip around because, like I said, Shawn definitely always could see what he wanted.
Yeah, he had the
there was
prize
nothing
in front
was
of
going to
him.
stop him.
Yeah.
To get that.
Yeah, and I guess that leads into getting into the Tennessee territories, where I guess you picked up that new tag team partner.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I
kind of latch on to for a couple of years.
After Shawn left Texas for the AWA, I was left by myself, and Gary Hart actually had just started booking, and then it just wasn't working out.
Yeah.
And so he managed to send me to Tennessee shortly after Shawn had left. And when I first got there, I worked as a babyface, and Pat still wasn't there. Shortly after, he showed up there from Crockett's from Carolina, and one thing led to another, and we wound up, as a tag team, never ever imagining that we'd be sitting here, years and
30
years later,
35, 40 years later,
right, and having had the kind of career that we did. But we finally got put together. Jeff Jarrett had just started wrestling.
Sure.
And Pat had a heck of a storyline program with Jeff when Jeff first started, and then it got me involved in it, turned me heel, where we, Jerry Jarrett wanted to make Jeff, a superhero, so both of us couldn't beat him up. But so that's how we wound up together. And then eventually the name of Bad Company, but it was kind of a slow process, and obviously, it's going to take time for you to realize, hey, this might be something we could do long term.
Sure.